Well, I know I'm about 2 weeks late, but Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year and good afternoon, which is probably the first time I've ever said that on this Twitch channel, because if you've been following for a while, you know that most of my streams take place at nighttime. But now where I am, it's the afternoon. Wherever you are, though, whether it's morning, it's evening, I hope you're doing well. This is a little bit weird. I'm not gonna lie. I just got home from work not that long ago and then hopped on stream. So this is kind of new. It's gonna be a little bit. It's kind of like the same old routine, but switched up a bit. Normally we do the community watch parties once a month for the Pantheon developer update streams, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. But if you'll remember, last month, rather than tuning in to do a watch party live and react to the news live as it happened, I just kind of coincidentally did the watch party the day after and watched the recording, which allowed me to kind of pause the video and kind of talk about it more in depth as we went along, rather than me trying to like talk over things live, you know. So we did that last month and I had a lot of fun with it. Everybody seemed to enjoy it. And so I figure, why don't we keep that going and do that again this month? But because we're just watching the recording, I'm like, I can do that whenever I want. I have the power. And so it doesn't need to take place at the same time that it normally does. So we're doing it early. We're doing it early today. And it's going to be interesting. The topic for this, my brain just froze for a second. As you can tell, I've got the beanie on today because it's the middle of January in the Northeast and it's quite cold, and I think the cold just got to my brain there a little bit and it just seized up for a second, but hopefully this beanie will warm my brain back up. Anyway, the topic for this it happened again. The topic for this developer live stream is a progress update on the road to alpha. Now, if you've been following Pantheon's development lately, you know that everything that's going on right now is all about getting them closer and closer to alpha, which is a milestone that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time. And it's 2022 now, and Java has declared that this is the year of imminence. How about this smooth merch transition to this plug? Because this is not official. This is not official merch. This is merch that I made, and you can get it at designbyhumans.com/shop/BazgrimTV. We've got Imminence 2022. Let me try to. Oh, look at that! It looks from a distance. You think it's black? It looks black. Nope. It's actually navy. It's a nice like dark navy blue. Got the Imminence 2022 on there. Looks so good, and it makes everything you drink out of it taste much better. I'm pretty sure that's scientifically proven. Anyway, with that in mind, with this cup in my hand, let's just jump right into it. I've talked enough about this anyway, and so why don't we talk about Pantheon and what the developers had to say last night. I will say right off the bat that I know pretty much nothing about this stream other than what I just told you, which is just the public promo that they put out. And so I am completely spoiler free. These are going to be, these are my genuine, fresh reactions as we move through this. I just realized I had my chat window minimized. There you guys are. Hello, Thorndeep Grizzly, Goofy Warrior Guy, BitCruns is here, which is for the first time made it to the live stream. That's why I think it's nice we kind of switch up the times a little bit, get some new people in here. Bit has been doing some awesome work on the Library Pantheon team. Retro Jim, Lucilla, Minus is here. A lot of the same crowd for kicking this off 6 hours earlier than normal. I was just wondering if, people would be at work or whatever, and I figure, I know Bit is in on Euro time, and so I thought, just try to reach out to some new parts of the Pantheon community. But it's good to see a lot of familiar faces. Jesper. How are you guys doing? Everybody doing good? Everybody have a good new year? Seems like some of you have already watched last night's stream, which is totally understandable. Again, it's hard for me to stay spoiler free. I'm not gonna lie. I'm supposed to be on top of everything, but I gotta make myself wait. I was tempted today. I had some time. I actually had some time that I could have watched it, but I didn't. So it's cool. I'm glad that even though you already saw the stream, coming back for more. Maybe we can glean something new out of it. Working from home, of course. Yeah, some other EU folks. I'm glad you could make it. Recent Revelry here is in here. Good to see you, man. I've been enjoying watching your Pantheon content. All right. We're good to go. I'm gonna put my headphones on. All right, let's get into it.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the January 13th, 2022 Pantheon Rise of the Fallen development stream. I am your host, David Roenick-Schlau, and with me today is my new co-host. Welcome to the January. Oh, hold on a second, I'm getting a.
That's David there.
Oh, echo.
There you go.
Getting some feedback. All right. Anyway, as I was saying, my new co-host is with me tonight, Tony Guidi, aka Minus, looking like Ming the Merciless here. And obviously our creative director, Chris Joppa-Perkins, is here with us as well. So just kind of moving forward, we're really excited about this year. There's a lot coming up. The team is hard at work trying to get this game out for you guys. And as far as the streams go, we have a new direction. Obviously, with Tony here as my co-host, we'd also like to sort of take things in a little bit of a different direction. We're going to be doing more kind of shorter bites, more digestible. So the streams sometimes we're running for, maybe 30 minutes. And if the stream sometimes is longer, we'll go back to the hour. But the idea is to basically make things a little more concise and, quick hits. As I said, Tony, you'll be with me now. And I think you have some things you'd like to say.
Yeah, so what we're going to implement is a lot of different techniques with content creation. So don't be surprised if you see, things like audio clips where me and David could be like, hey, let's go to an audio clip. We sat with so-and-so, which could be pretty cool. And on top of that, pre-produced content, which you guys are actually going to see a little bit of tonight.
First of all, I always like to check in. How is the audio for you guys? It seems like, from what I can tell, their mics, their audio might not be that balanced. Seems like Roenick is a little bit louder than Minus, but as long as you guys can hear and as long as you can understand what they're saying, we'll carry on. Seems good. All right, let's just roll with it.
Just different techniques to have things ready to show on stream and then be able to digest. We're still looking to get all the beans that you guys want out there. We should have a good time with it. So what do you think, David? Not a bad deal, right?
I think that's what everybody's here for, right? It's the beans. That's not to say that, obviously we're going to have, Chris on or developers on when the time comes to really, break out some of the bigger stuff or to really dive deep in where like, their expertise are needed. But ultimately, we'll be delivering the news to you guys, and we'll see how it kind of goes. We're really excited today. We're going to be talking about our roadmap to alpha. Thanks for joining.
Okay, so this is interesting. Right off the bat with the change of the stream format this year, I think it makes a lot of sense though. So I'm kind of gathering that Minus is going to be the new Brendyn of the streams in a sense. So that Brendyn, who has a very important job as producer, so that he can focus on other things, and it all seems like it's for the goal of letting developers develop, or at least spend more time developing rather than just talking, which I think is about right. At this point in the game's development, the vast majority of people have pretty much made up their mind about Pantheon, and there's not really much that you can say or even really show that's going to have a wildly significant effect on that. And really, like I was saying earlier, it's all about this year, pedal to the metal, get alpha done and out, because allowing people to actually play it with their own eyes and hands is going to have way more of an effect than any of these streams will. Like these streams are enjoyable, and we do get some good insight from them, but I think it's more than fair to not do away with them completely, but just kind of shorten them, refine them a little bit more, and so that the progress is even more of a priority than just kind of talking. It's always, I could talk about it for a long time because this has always been it's such a big struggle of crowdfunded development. It's constant give and take, and they're always, if you look back throughout the years of Pantheon's development, as I have, and seen it's constantly been this balancing act of like, you're a crowdfunded studio, so you need to be engaging the crowd. You need to be showing that things are happening, because then that's what drives the funding that you need to continue developing, right? And so, and yes, regardless of what any rumors may be out there, Pantheon is not a fully funded game. It never has been, and so they need that funding. And so it's tough. There's not really any. There's never a clear answer as to like, how much kind of like promotion and marketing and this engaging with the community should you do versus how much should you just put your heads down and just grind to get things done, because these streams. Sure, Minus he's in chat right now, and I'm sure he can tell you, like, even putting on just an hour show like once a month, like that takes time, and Joppa is here when he could be doing other things. It takes, even if other developers aren't appearing on stream, they might have to throughout the month like give Ronick some material or whatever to or information that can be discussed in the stream by other people, and so that all takes time. It's hard for us to really quantify it from our perspective, but Anyway, that's a long-winded explanation to say that I think this is probably the right call. All right, moving on. I'm telling you, we're 2 minutes in. We're 2 minutes into a 50-minute stream, and it's gonna buckle up.
Joining us, Chris.
Oh yeah, it's a pleasure to be here as always, especially for the kickoff stream of 2022. Just looking forward to taking a deeper look at where we're at here at the start of the year, and then where we're headed.
Yeah, and we have a lot we're going to talk about even in the short time today. I wanted to start off and talk about a little bit about the roadmap, and in particular the pieces that we've marked. If you've been following our newsletters, we've marked some of them as complete. That being combat awareness and asset terrain in particular. What does that mean, for the audience at hand? Does that mean there's not going to be any more work on this item? Does that mean, what does it mean as far as our goals to alpha?
Okay, so when items on the list are marked as complete, that means that they're complete according to our standards for alpha testing to begin. So it doesn't mean necessarily that they're 100% complete, never needing to be touched again. It means that according to what we have slated for alpha testing to begin, that they are complete to that point. In fact, the whole point of the alpha testing phase is to progressively ensure that everything is working properly under as many different kinds of conditions as possible, and to make sure that everything gets fully fleshed out, specifically allowing for that much, much larger source of feedback coming in. You have all those players in now playing the game, and based on that actual experience, there's going to be a lot of feedback coming in. So in most cases, any work that would continue beyond the point of being complete, as we're calling it complete, for example, with combat awareness, one of the completed items, continuing to add more and more dispositions, flavorful behaviors, things like that over time, that's the kind of thing you can expect to be ongoing. It's a content creation thing. And that, honestly, that's the kind of stuff we'll see developing, utilizing those systems and things like that all the way up between now and launch and even beyond launch. The content creation is something that will be ongoing. So, but they're complete in the sense that they're at a stage where they are ready for alpha testing to begin.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, sir. So let's jump into some of the stuff that's in progress. Specifically, I'd love to talk a little bit more about where we are with HDRP conversion and what information you can give us where we're sort of getting into our zone's environment, to our area's environments. And I think you prepared some screenshots here. Do you want me to run those while you're talking?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, the biggest news on the HDRP world development front is the progress that we've made on vegetation, trees, foliage, the biome tech. Huge strides there. We've got some images, to kind of show off that.
That looks so much more full.
On that front. And what I want to emphasize is that our focus is still on functionality. Our focus is still on performance, not on beautification here, even though
I think I know. That looks like Thrown Fast. I think we have seen that face in the rock before in a stream. But that looks much better. Quite a bit different, actually. If it weren't for the face in the rock, I probably would not have recognized it. It's amazing how much of a difference just like ferns and grass and shrubs and trees and stuff, how much of a difference that makes compared to like kind of like the bare landscape that they showed even just a month or so ago. Looks really good.
Obviously, these are significant steps forward. We're still not at the point where we're ready to say, okay, everything's dialed in, behold. That point is coming. But again, right now, the tech is active in the project. We're profiling performance. We're dialing in our asset streaming, the instancing tech. We're dialing those things more and more so that we can support the amount of grass, the amount of different grass types, and even down to individual blades of grass. We have to account for all of those things because they're all objects that need to be rendered. And but we're making huge strides forward. Our goal ultimately is for Pantheon to be a beautiful game, but still run, play smooth as silk. So that's the stage we're in right now. But obviously this is a massive step forward in being able to bring the continent of Kingsreach all the way home in preparation for alpha and get these areas really looking dialed in as they're meant to look. So excited for where we're at, excited to show off more soon.
And Chris, do you want to clarify real quick the term instancing tech? As soon as it was said, the chat lit up when they heard the word instancing. I don't think it's what they think it is. So can you just sort of explain what that means in layman's terms?
It's probably a good call out.
So this is a rendering term in the sense that when you have tens or hundreds of thousands of the same object, you want to be able to render that essentially as a single pass, a single instance of that object. And so this has nothing to do with the gameplay sense of instancing. This is a term that refers to a type of rendering process that we are using to make sure we can have lots of beautiful grass, lots of beautiful foliage, and still have the game run really well.
I think you gave half the community a heart attack there. So thanks for the.
It's the beginning of the year. We got to wake up. So
yeah. But also, even looking at those screenshots from the progress where we were in pre-alpha and the people that were or have already been in game and have saw a lot of the gray boxing. You could the gradual progression that you see is outstanding internally, but I'm sure now it's cool to show outside.
Totally.
Anyway, so next up, I want to talk a little bit about class development. I know Adam has kind of been hard at work on a bunch of stuff. Even recently talking on the channel about how casters no longer will be tied to critical damage. What can you tell us about classes we're familiar with, but also maybe some of the newer classes that are being set up?
Well, first off, I would say if you're interested in this topic, classes, combat, etc., the first move I'd suggest is listening to the dev roundtable that Adam and I did in December. We went pretty in depth there about a lot of what we've been working on as far as the combat system, class play, and whatnot. So what Adam has been working on specifically is taking the fundamental class designs that I developed and bringing a fresh perspective and pushing those designs even further, while also weaving them into this updated combat architecture that emphasizes the kind of pacing and strategy and tactics that we've been talking about from the beginning. And so what that means is you're going to see some tweaks to how certain class resources function. You're going to see some tweaks to certain ability lines, maybe the addition of new ability lines to really emphasize that class's flavor, that class's role. Now, as we're farther along, we're capable of, bringing some of the more ambitious ability designs to life. So you're going to see some of those coming to bear. You're going to see some tweaks to certain aspects of our attributes and how they function, some tweaks to how health and mana regenerate, and the pacing of that. And the list goes on as we've taken a long look based on all the feedback that has come before, and really the vision for what we want Pantheon's combat to be. And we've made some really fundamental steps forward. And Adam's been deeply involved in a lot of that work. And so in summation, I'd say that the identity, the enjoyment of Pantheon's combat is continuing to improve. And I fully expect it to be one of our strong suits. What I can also add is that we're currently working to bring the cleric online, and some initial work has begun on the paladin as well, getting these classes ready to kind of make their debut, and alongside of the other improvements and evolutions of the other classes that we've seen so far.
I think what's important to kind of note is, with the combat stuff, it's even though it's evolving, the sort of geneticist of it all, the core values of what we originally set out to kind of do, are still there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely, yeah. This is absolutely we use the word evolution a lot in terms of Pantheon's development, what its aims are. We're not looking at we're looking at taking fundamental things and evolving them forward to make them better, deeper, more impactful. So absolutely, like the the fundamental design of these classes has not changed. Their role hasn't changed. Their arsenal, largely has stayed the same, except for, again, some of those tweaks and additions and places that we've identified to push them even further and deeper into that class fantasy. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's already been mentioned. I don't know if you saw, David, in the chat, but the next one here is one that a lot of people have wanted more information on. We know it's one of our biggest, developmental pieces we've all been sort of excited about, and that is the networking, right? So we've talked a lot about it. It's a very important topic for both, us, the community as well. And for us to go over some of the more technical stuff we're able to show here would be a little silly because we have Kyle on our team. So what we have is actually a little presentation here from Kyle to talk about the network stack. And then Chris, after we're done showing this, if you want to add anything on to where we're at with it and what you've seen so far, just to give people an update on where we are in the progress of that. So guys, it's about an 8-minute video. It's pretty cool. I hope you guys enjoy it. Kyle put a lot of love into it, but I'm going to go ahead and switch that on, and I'm going to mute us so you don't have to worry about us interrupting anything fun. So here we go. This is Kyle talking about the networking stack.
Hey guys, I'm going to give a little update and show off a little demo of
I wonder what they do
library final
while they're just waiting for this video to play for 8 minutes.
And a couple clients. Okay, so historically, our library has been focused on the usability side of Unity and networking. So improving the developer experience and making it easy to write a network message or a network update, which means that our library focuses on code generation and automatic serialization and deserialization. So
yeah, it's funny. It's so distracting hearing him use the term library. Having become so immersed in the library of Pantheon, it's hard for me to remember that that's not what he's talking about. All right. I feel like this is gonna be technical. This might be a little bit over my head, but I'm gonna do my best. All right, everybody, focus in. Put your thinking caps on if you haven't already. I'll pretend this is my thinking cap because it's keeping my brain warm. All right, we're talking about networking.
Turning a message into bytes and sending those bytes over the network, and then receiving those bytes on the other side, and then turning those bytes back into a representation of the message. And that's been great. That the first version of the library worked very well. It was fairly performant, but it was built the core was built outside of Unity in terms of context. It didn't depend on Unity. None of the features utilized Unity's internals, especially their newer stuff like the job system and burst compiler, to optimize the core part of the library. The benefit was we could run part of the library outside of Unity, but for our use case, that wasn't very useful. We've recently been converting as much as we can, really, to Unity's job system and burst compiler because that's really the best way to write performant code in Unity. So to make the most expensive part of an MMO, being the networking side, to make that performant, we want to jobify and burst compile it if possible. Now with the initial version of the library, we could actually use Unity's job system, but it wouldn't be a very big win over our own threading that we had. We already had several serialization threads, a network IO thread, and lockless ways of communicating with them with queues. So it was decently performant, but what we couldn't do was run Unity's burst compiler over a majority of our code because a majority of our transport library was written in raw C, which Unity isn't capable of compiling. We could run all of that code in the job system, but we wouldn't get a vast majority of the automatic optimizations that come from Unity's burst compiler. So the solution there is to write our own transport layer and then burst compile it, which is what we've done in version 2 of the library, which nets us some fairly significant CPU gains. You can see, obviously, this is a pretty simple setup. It doesn't even register on my machine. Just 2 users doing area of interest with each other. If I get far away, he fully unloads. If I get close, he reloads. Simple, works well. But the wins really come when we crank up the.
So I already feel like I'm slightly lost. Is he, and maybe since you guys have already watched this and talked about it, is he saying that the network library that he originally made, because Kyle had already made a network library, so when he's talking about like version 1, is that the one that he made, or is that the one that they were using before that? Because I would find it surprising if he originally wrote his own network library in C and that it didn't work with Unity, because because he's like a Unity guy. He's like a Unity networking guy. That's his thing. That's what he's always done. Does anybody know that? Like, or Minus, if you're still here? I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this. The existing, like the one that they were using like before he came on to the team. That would make more sense to me personally, based on what my understanding is. I don't know, I don't know where that original library came from. Because I remember, I'd have to go look it up, but I seem to remember him talking about like the, months and months ago, the network library that he created, like from scratch himself, utilized the burst compiler and job system and things like that, and that's why it's so and that's why they're so optimistic about it. He wrote the original in C and then had to rewrite it in C#. Everybody's got a different answer. I feel like this is kind of an important thing. They switched C to C++. I don't think it's C. They're not. It's C# now. Unity utilizes C# like for almost everything. You know what? This is freaking YouTube. I'm gonna go back. Sorry. This is why this is gonna take a long time. But I want to make sure that we're on the same page here. I want to make sure that we understand it. Maybe we're just gonna keep rewatching it until we understand it. Let's go back to the beginning.
This is Kyle talking about the networking stack.
Hey guys, I'm gonna give a little update and show off a little demo of our network library, Vinyl. Let me get a server going.
Vinyl.
Clients. Okay, so historically, our library has been focused on the usability side of Unity and networking. So improving the developer experience and making it easy to write a network message or a network update, which means that our library focuses on code generation and automatic serialization and deserialization. So turning a message into bytes and sending those bytes over the network, and then receiving those bytes on the other side, and then turning those bytes back into a representation of the message. And that's been great. That the first version of the library worked very well. It was fairly performant, but it was built the core was built outside of Unity in terms of context. It didn't depend on Unity. None of the features utilized Unity's internals, especially their newer stuff like the job system and burst compiler.
My understanding, the way that he's phrasing it, like historically and that it was made outside of Unity, it makes it sound like he's referring to like the old network layer that VR has been using for years. You know what I mean? Like maybe even one of the developers that isn't on the team anymore maybe wrote it just for the, for the ease of use on the developer side, like he was talking about, and just to make it easier for them to keep moving forward, with writing code rather than something that was tailor-made for performance in Unity. That's my understanding. That's my understanding of it currently. Let's move forward with that.
To optimize the core part of the library. The benefit was we could run part of the library outside of Unity, but for our use case, that wasn't very useful. We've recently been converting as much as we can, really, to Unity's job system and burst compiler, because that's really the best way to write performant code in Unity. So to make the most expensive part of an MMO, being the networking side, to make that performant, we want to jobify and burst compile it if possible. Now with the initial version of the library, we could actually use Unity's job system, but it wouldn't be a very big win over our own threading that we had. We already had several serialization threads, a network IO thread, and lockless ways of communicating with them with queues. So it was decently performant, but what we couldn't do was run Unity's burst compiler over a majority of our code, because a majority of our transport library was written in raw C, which Unity isn't capable of compiling. We could run all of that code in the job system, but we wouldn't get a vast majority of the automatic optimizations that come from Unity's burst compiler. So the solution there is to write our own transport layer and then burst compile it, which is what we've done in version 2 of the library, which nets us some fairly significant CPU gains. You can see, obviously, this is a pretty simple setup. It doesn't even register on my machine. Just 2 users doing area of interest with each other. If I get far away, he fully unloads. If I get close, he reloads. Simple. Works well. But the wins really come when we crank up the number of objects, because area of interest and hooking that into the network message system can become a fairly big bottleneck when you're dealing with a video game and transitioning between being on one thread of the game and wanting to send a message on another thread, which would be your network thread. So let's create 10,000. Give that a sec. So the server just spawned a bunch of network active objects and added them to the interest management system. And we can walk around. You can see as I move around on this screen, the server serves up creation packets and destruction packets and actually creates these objects. These don't exist on the client until you get near them. Same for this guy. So if I up the visibility, say like 100, you can see we're actually loading quite a bit of stuff. Same idea still applies. I can move this guy, and the visibility ring is much larger now. You can see, even though we're doing visibility calculations on a fair number of objects, the server isn't really sweating yet. It's because this is all multi-threaded and able to efficiently schedule itself alongside Unity's own jobs that it schedules. So say we're using multi-threaded rendering in these setups. So Unity is scheduling jobs to do that rendering, and we can schedule our network IO right alongside those jobs so they happen concurrently. So in some cases, and low use of the network, you can almost get free network IO. Depends on how much other stuff is happening on the job queue. So let's stress this out a bit more. Let's spawn some headless clients. So these are actual users that are just simulating inputs. So you can see our network IO has skyrocketed quite a bit. In fact, let's pull up the resource monitor. See what our actual IO is. So we're hitting about...
I wanna pause it there just because I know this is like it's a lot. This is like dense stuff, and it is important stuff. I know not everybody even has the slightest understanding of like what any of this means. I will do my best. I'll do my best to try to put some of this into simple terms just so you can see what's happening. Even if it may be really obvious to some people, but this, what he has highlighted down here, this is the server. This could just be running on some machine anywhere in the world, and the keeping an eye on the task manager here, you can see how much of that machine's CPU the server is utilizing to process all of this data. CPU, memory, obviously you want these numbers to stay low. If it's low, then it means that this server, this networking application that Kyle created is really efficient and really easy to run. And then up here, this is clients. This is what, client, it looks like he made a couple of clients, but one of these is what you would see as a player. Obviously this is just a simulation. This is basic, just basic polygons, but the basics of how it works are still the same and can be translated over into the game. And this is so this is simulating what one player would see from their perspective when they're playing the game. And so obviously, this is be running on your computer, and depending on how much memory and CPU usage and stuff, that will depend on your own. That'll depend on your own system specifications, but as we can see, this is a lot, this is very zoomed out, and this is a lot of, this is a lot of data that the server is feeding you. All these gray Tic Tac shaped cylinders, these are simulating other people that you would encounter in the world. These are just bots that he's programmed to kind of simulate the types of things that players would be doing. So, anytime a player moves around, anytime you use WASD to move around, for example, that your client is sending a message to the server. Server is then verifying it to make sure that you're not cheating, and then updating that information and showing it to everybody else. So every time you move or use an ability or send a chat message or anything like that, all is going from your computer to the server, which has the authority to verify that you're taking a legit action, and then showing everybody else. And that all this is all happening incredibly fast, many times a second, for everything that everybody's doing in an MMO. And you imagine there can be dozens, hundreds of players, maybe even thousands of players in an area all doing all of these things very quickly, and that can be very taxing on a server that is not built to handle all that information efficiently. And so things like this is just a test. It's a proof of concept, I guess you could say, of showing that, hey, how many headless clients did he create? Like 200 or something. It's simulating that many players in this area, and they're all carrying out actions, even though it's pretty random. From the server's perspective, it's just the same as if it were you and I in there actually playing for real. Like the bot is pretty convincing as far as the server is concerned, is with the actions that it's taking, like a player would, moving around like this. So hopefully that kind of at least gives you a basic frame of reference for what the heck we're even looking at.
10 megabits locally between all of the instances here. So this is our server instance. Peaked up a little bit of CPU. Well, it's dropping, I guess. But if we look at Unity, you can see a ton of clients have fired up. They're just running in a headless form, so they don't have a renderer. So they're a lot more efficient for a single computer to run. But we can keep kicking them up. They're just walking around, choosing random positions. And again, this is raw packet updates. So there's no smoothing being applied onto any of these player updates here. It's just sending a position and
yeah. Bronson made a good point too, that the white boxes, those are like objects in the environment. So like trees or buildings or whatever other assets that the server still needs to know what the location of them in the world is, but it's not something that is changing as dynamically as a player would.
Applying the position as it gets received. So you can see fairly stable in terms of the IO queue of the network library. So let's up the amount of traffic quite a bit here. So let's set the tick rate of the server all the way up to 128. So we're receiving a lot more packets per second now. Actually, let's just unlock it. Receiving over a megabit in IO per client, right? And we've got about 100 clients connected. Or make that there. Now we've got 100 clients connected. Let's see what we hit. 160, 150 megabits a second. We're still fairly stable in terms of the IO queue. Our server barely breaking a sweat still. This is just thanks to efficient job scheduling and the burst compiler. This would have been capable, or the previous iterations of the library would have been capable of doing this, just at significantly higher CPU and memory usage, which means that we get less scaling on our servers, and we have to spend more money to host the same number of people in zones. So the more that we can iterate on this to improve performance, the less money that we can shell out each month to run our servers, and or the more servers that we can run for the same amount of money. So that kind of sums it up. That's where we're at now. The library has basically reached parity with version 1, the new version. Actually, in some areas, it's exceeded it. And we're just about ready to start integration into Pantheon proper. So you'll see some updates on that fairly soon. And thanks, guys.
All right, awesome. So I think, Chris, it's fair to say that we would not have been able to, number one, explain that nearly as well as Kyle, but also to put those visuals in so that we could also understand it. So the networking project has just been absolutely huge. You've talked about it on multiple occasions, Chris, what it means to not just like certain things we're working on, but the overall health testing, what it's going to be like to open the gates for players and needing this tech. So I was curious if you wanted to add anything else on about what that progress is looking like. I think a long time ago you said it's probably a heads down couple month project. It looks like Kyle's really gotten a good jump on it. So I'm just curious where we're at and what you can add on to what Kyle showed there.
Well, first of all, I have to acknowledge the blue bean being a bard in lambent armor. Absolutely. I enjoyed the presentation as much as I enjoyed the commentary. Yeah, it's a fantastic demonstration. It's one of a couple that Kyle's put together to really visualize what it is that he's doing. And I mean, it's no secret that the networking and the quality of your networking is one of the most fundamental pieces of a successful experience on an online game. Whether you're talking about a first-person shooter or an MMORPG, latency and the responsiveness, the performance, the stability of your networking layer is vital. And it's really been kind of the last big mountain that we have needed to climb. And we've had our sights set on it for a while because Kyle, as incredible of a software engineer, programmer as he is, he comes kind of packed with this passion for networking. And I was just telling Tony and David while we were watching that, you know, how much Kyle has genuinely enjoyed, like has fun working on this stuff. It's a passion of his. And so it's just a huge win for Pantheon all around. And I mean, simply what this means is that you're looking at the fundamental components of what's going to allow us to scale up to a true, you know, full scale MMORPG experience to support the kind of player population that we want to support the other kind of network dependent activities that we want to support in the game, and to do it on a level that, you know, would be expected in the modern market. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. I think, you know, me talking about it is probably as beneficial as a good portion of people watching that. I think what's going to be best is to actually be able to eventually see this in action and see it soon. Progress is ongoing. Networking stack, we have officially begun work on the networking stack as is being demonstrated here, and much more that, you know, than what was demonstrated here. And
yeah, that's a good point, because you know, when you're watching like cubes and beans move around, it's hard to, you know, even if you have a pretty good understanding of how networking works, like it's hard to like really imagine like what does that mean for Pantheon, you know, because that game, like that's that game that we just saw like demoed, it does, you know, it's like it's the graphics are worse than Minecraft, you know. It's like it's like what am I even seeing right now? But at a very fundamental level anyway, like that is what's happening, you know, that is what a game is after, you know, you pull back all the layers. Like a lot of people in chat were clarifying that, you know, your client, your computer, is what kind of beautifies that, but for the most part, in adding, you know, the textures and the animations and stuff that you see superficially that really make the game look like what it is. And you know, and that's what we're used to seeing, but really when you boil it down, it really is just a bunch of blocks and, you know, blocks and tic tacs moving around. And so it almost kind of seems like, I guess an analogy for it would be like, you know, we're watching this game get developed, and we've seen all the, you know, we've seen a lot of the zones start off in gray box, and, you know, a lot of people who maybe aren't familiar with how game development works, they might see that these like very rough polygons, you know, solid colors, and you know, there's like what is this garbage? You know. But that the gray boxing is a very fundamental aspect of world building. Like, you need that. You need to do that first, and then, as we have seen even at the beginning of this stream, once you have the gray boxing, only then can you actually properly polish it and add those textures and those fine details to really make it look like what most people would expect an MMO to look like. And so this will follow in some ways the same process of going from just these blocks and tic tacs to, you know, actual in-game network activity where we're actually seeing you know, real players become alpha, you know, actually seeing a lot of people existing in the same place and doing the sort of things that you do when you're playing an MMO, but doing it fluidly and with minimal latency. So that's how I look at it. And hopefully that gives you a little perspective.
And so keep an ear out over the coming months as that process continues, and we will be sure to absolutely let you know as soon as it's done.
Is Kyle a replicant? Like, that's the question. That's what I want to know, because dude does not sleep. Or if he does, I haven't seen him. Maybe somebody said he shuts down to defragment, which I thought was...
He does sleep. He does sleep. He is human. I have confirmed this, but yeah. It's if you're not looking carefully, it would be hard to see.
This is a good opportunity to remind everybody that Pantheon is a crowdfunded game. We are here because of you. If you like what you see, please go to pantheonmmo.com. And Tony, did you know that we have just today put up our world page? So there's some new lore on the site that people could check out. Did you know that?
I didn't, David. Thank you for letting me know.
Really?
You're welcome.
God, I love being able to pause this stream. Here we go. Game world. That's new. Whoa. Okay. See, this is so smart. World. We've got Frail Age, Age of Chaos, Age of Seclusion, Fairthale, Wild Zone. We got some zone spotlights there. All right. I'm not gonna dig through this right now. This will probably be another stream for another day. But they've got the map. This is the actual terrain in game. Top-down view of just the continent of Kingsreach. Does it clarify? Kind of wish that they would clarify that this is just one of 3 continents. Okay, yeah. Regions. Okay, yeah. They should probably clarify that this is not the whole world. This is literally just like 1/3 of the whole world that will exist at launch. But this is what is slated for the end of alpha. The end of alpha. Not all of this will be available at the beginning of alpha. Good chunk of it will, but this is what will be available by the end of alpha. Okay, and then there's all right, we got some lore here. That's good for the lore folks. Fairthale. There's some concept art. I got some descriptions of some POIs. All right, good stuff. Okay. Whoops. Let's carry on.
But honestly, let's make sure, because we got to start getting used to this back and forth, right? Like Jop is unfortunate. He's in between us having to deal with it right now. But this back and forth where I'm like, no, David, I don't know. But the important thing I will say is it's going to be up. You can go after the stream to watch it. You don't need to just rush away right now. Got a little bit of stream left, and then you can check it out all night.
There you go.
You guys just need to start looking at each other when you talk to each other.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's old school.
The right way? I don't even know if I'm looking the right way these days. But that's in life in general. Well, it's hard to kind of follow the networking excitement. I mean, that's one of the biggest topics we're talking about. But there's some other cool things I want to talk about. And in particular, there's an area that we haven't really touched on in a while, and that's crafting and gathering. Recently Philip and Jared have kind of worked together to create some materials, for all the different resources we have on Terminus. We talk about metals with guidance from Justin and Neff. We're not going to spoil them, But Chris, I'd love to hear you talk about the importance of the material library and how that's coming along, and really what it means for Terminus. And we're gonna run some clips, I think, right?
Yeah, I'll run
Tony?
the clips while you guys are talking. Yep.
Wait, which way is he, Tony?
Yeah, this is a big step forward for our overall goals for itemization, and it's not just with the crafting sphere. It's in the way it informs the entire host of materials that exist within Terminus. And what we're showcasing now tonight or today are the metals specifically, but you can expect the same treatment to be done for all materials of all various types of things that exist in the world. We're purposely hiding the names of what these things are.
I was gonna say,
just to preserve the mystery and the in-game discovery. But you can see here, Jared has done these depictions and these renders of the different types of metal. And within these, you can see kind of the raw version, the polished version, and the rusted version. And then what Philip has done is taken that into the 3D space using Substance Painter to create the actual materials that will be applied to the armor and the weapons that exist in the game. And so what I love about this is the way Philip is setting up the material library. He's setting it up in such a way that it allows us to very easily apply these materials.
There's so many different libraries.
All of our armor, our weaponry, really within minutes.
Look at this! Look at this green.
He's setting it up in such a way that it allows us to very easily apply these materials to all.
That's what, I don't know what this is called. It better be called Mathara though, because this is what this looks like what Eridune's armor is made out of. That's pretty dope. This is all cool. I'm glad that they're showing these because the two-dimensional images that they were showing earlier for some reason looked like low resolution images. It was kind of hard to see the details, but like I love the weathering on this. It's cool.
All of our armor, our weaponry, really within minutes, once we get to that stage of the asset creation process. And it keeps the aesthetic of the materials consistent across all itemization. So, if we're talking about something like iron, the way iron specifically looks in Terminus, iron will have a predefined
That's
raw.
sick. You think this is Cold Arc? Oops.
In Terminus, iron.
Cold Arc Steel, maybe? Fusion of ice and stone. Is that what Cold Arc? No. Cold Arc Steel. Oh, now I'm mixing up my dwarf terminology. I should know better. Regardless, I think this is Cold Arc Steel. That's just my guess.
And we'll have a predefined raw aesthetic, a predefined rusted aesthetic, and a predefined polished aesthetic. And that iron, as it's applied to whether it be armor, weapons, objects in the game world, metal braces, iron, braces around a big, piece of siege equipment, whatever it may be, it's going to have that consistent aesthetic to the point where you, with a keen enough eye, can be able to tell even from a glance what kind of metal material that is. And the same thing will apply to different cloths, to woods, and kind of the whole gamut. So it's really important because of not only is it aesthetically beautiful, not only is it a piece of Terminus that's kind of coming to bear visually, but it's awesome for our productivity as well, because now we have this built out library of materials that allows us to say, oh, this is a Cold Arc Steel breastplate. Boom, we've got Cold Arc Steel already in the tank. We know, it's defined, it's ready, it's applied, it's done. And that's right in line with our convictions around item identity. We talk about item identity a lot, and so the fact that these materials are so consistently defined and so consistently applied is only going to further reinforce that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Those look so good.
They do. And like, I just, when you think of item parity, you think of picking up an item and knowing, what it is and being able to visually see it. And we hid the names because it wouldn't be fun at all for you guys to know all the crafting materials right away. But I'm sure some of those lore heads out there, Joppa, might be able to dig through that and crawl through and so it'd be maybe a little bit of fun for some people to dig into and see what they can figure out.
For sure.
Matthew says green is Terralium Scar specific area. Is that legit? Is that lore canon? Because I've never heard of that. Or are you just guessing? Are you making stuff up on me? Oh, he said Nefel put out a descriptive list of all these materials, colors, and where located a while back on Discord. Really? Was that like just in the VIP Discord? Or was that in the public Discord? I don't remember that. I'll have to go find that. Because that would be interesting. He did like for all of them? Because that would kind of defeat the purpose of what they were just saying about keeping it a secret. Dominating Slash says that should be in the library. It should. There's so many libraries. We got a network library. We've got a material library. We've got the Library of Pantheon. Jeez.
So outside of that, which is another awesome thing I was excited to show today, I know that we've seen the world being built out. We've seen foliage being added. We've talked about these materials. The other piece of the world is NPCs. That's on our checklist. Just the placement of them, the population of them. And I know that Sacred has been working to do that. But I know that there's been a lot of work to NPC logic. I didn't know if you wanted to talk to some of that and what Sacred's been doing with that recently.
Yeah. I don't want to say too much here, honestly, because this is one of those places where the details and the work that we're doing they're meant to be experienced. And it's such an interesting, difficult dance sometimes with open development, how much you talk about, how much you share, because you end up over time in aggregate, like kind of just saturating the psyche with what to expect. And so I'm going to try to choose my words carefully here. As I referenced earlier, we've made considerable improvements to the combat experience overall, including many particulars under the hood, all of which apply just as much to our NPCs as to player characters. So with the HDRP terrain conversion behind us and the zones coming more fully together now with flora, the trees, the things like that, etc. Sacred has come alongside me in reviewing our NPC populations and beginning to make adjustments that coincide with those combat experience goals. I just don't want to say more than that, because I think just like when we showed the combat awareness stream where we were in Isle of Infinite Storm on top of the tower and we were showcasing things like the conditional logic the NPCs were using to make decisions about what to do in combat, and we can talk about that all we want, and yet seeing it in action and then the things that you haven't seen yet are also a really big part of what makes a system like that on track to be really successful and a really impactful, heavy-hitting experience. So the only other thing I'll add is just that Adam as well has been doing a lot of work building out a really awesome variety of abilities for the NPCs as well. And we're very, very likely going to have a stream dedicated to showcasing these things in the near future. So whatever I'm not, kind of diving into now, it's really for the purpose of, storing it up to really showcase it in full as much as we can. But again, it's always going to be that, we're kind of walking this line and figuring things out as we go of, how much do you share? How much do you show leading up to the big day?
You're going to love this next question then. Well, so, obviously we've talked a lot about the important stuff, the important systems and, the foundation and why those took priority so far. But I'd like to talk a little bit about something that hasn't really been talked about or updated, and whatever you can give here. The community is sort of very thirsty, we'll just say. Can you talk a little bit about the pet system and how it's going to affect Ranger, Summoner, and Druid, and why the network system needs to be implemented first. I know we've kind of talked a little bit about this before, but I mean, I'm bound by the viewers. They hold me to standards, so I have to ask.
And did you see you got an oh my god in chat immediately? So.
Some thirsty people, yeah, I get
it. Come on.
This is one of those places where the answer, I'm sure, probably feels from the outside looking in like it's more complicated than what I'm about to say. But it literally comes down to waiting until we can do it right. And at that time, when that time comes, and as soon as that time comes, i.e. as soon as the networking stack is done, that's the time. What it comes down to, technically speaking, is it's a throughput issue. It's a sheer throughput issue. Our current networking bottlenecks limit us from being able to successfully bring a pet system online to the extent that it needs to be, to where the experience is right, to where, put it this way, just completely transparent. If we brought the pet system online right now, not only would it have to be to some extent rewritten with the new networking stack in mind, but we would bring it online, and already in pre-alpha testing, we can run into stability issues at times with our current networking stack when we have zones that reach a certain population, areas that reach a certain population of concurrent players. Now, we bring the summoner online, for example, and all of a sudden, half of our current PA testers make a summoner at least, because it's a new class they want to try it out. And now all of a sudden we have at least 50% more entities on top of what is already causing stability issues, and it would be unfruitful. And when you add that to the fact that it needs to be kind of the system would need to be reappropriated for the new networking stack, then it's just a decision about when is the right time to do that. So the reason the Ranger's been lumped into that needs new networking group is because of the beckoning system, yes, but also because of the things that we want to do with the archery system in Pantheon, and some of the cool stuff that we want to be able to do with projectiles and the things that I'll leave for a later time. But we simply need more fine detail control through our networking layer to create the kind of functionality and gameplay experience that we want for these classes, and we're waiting until we can do it right.
That's not obviously, that's to say we will do it right. I mean, it's a long process, and it's just a timing issue, not more than anything else.
Yeah.
And just to add to it, someone in chat asked Japa, how is a pet, going to be like a player character versus being an NPC? And I know you've talked in the past, and I'm not going to overspeak this, but in the past about a summoner pet is going to be much different than a pet that you may have seen in other games, with the control you're going to have over them and the development you're going to be able to put into a summoner pet. So for those of you that don't know, you're really going to not only have the journey of your character, but the journey of your pets as well as a summoner. And I think I'm saying that correctly, right?
Yeah, that's right. And from a technical perspective, again, we're our current limitations with the current networking stack and the throughput limitations that we have, the CPU overhead. It's not just a concurrent player bottleneck. It's also, how many NPCs have we been able to have in a zone at one time? And so even though pets technically will be, kind of seen and treated as NPCs, there's still additional entities on top of that. But now they have, additional functionality that's player controlled. There's, constant like repathing that has to be calculated based on player activity. And, entities coming in and out of existence based on, the summoning process, and summon this pet, now I want to summon this pet, now I want to summon this pet. And again, for the new networking stack, piece of cake, like it's whatever. But currently it would be a very performance heavy and lead to a pretty severe amount of instability to try and bring that kind of functionality online. And so knowing that the new networking stack is in process and forthcoming, it just makes sense to wait and introduce that system when it's ready.
Awesome. Thank you for clarifying that.
We're super excited about it. Like,
yeah,
well, it's a buzzword for me, but I mean, I love pet classes. I can't wait. Like, Pantheon's not going to feel complete. It's not going to feel, the roster is just has a big gaping hole in it until we can get those pet classes online. So, I mean, I'm ready.
So yeah. The chat loved that you said it's a piece of cake with the new networking, so they're all getting excited.
Oh my goodness, yeah. We'd up there out, no problem.
Couple more questions, David. At the beginning, we said these are going to be a little shorter. We didn't say today; said they're going to be, right? So we're still good.
Are we counting the 10 minutes we missed at the beginning with the technical difficulties?
That's true. That's true.
Okay,
we're on time. So a couple more things for you, Chris. At one point, the community concern, I think if you took a temperature of things that people were worried about or concerned about, last year, beginning of the year, I think we heard a lot about terrain, right? Like getting the zones ready. And I think that in the last few months, we've shown that's really not a concern, at least internally at all anymore. We're flying through that. I mean, you guys have seen the progress from Gray Box to the shots we showed today. So I think now it's, how it is. It's always a moving target. So, okay, this is good now. What's the next thing? And I think we've heard a lot of people talking about animations, both with needing the rigging and also just the improvement of animations or additional animations. So I wanted to ask you a couple things if you could talk about. One, what does it look like on team right now? Do we feel confident about our on team? And you've mentioned outsourcing quite a bit. So what are we looking at with that? And how do we prepare to outsource and what's going on with that?
Okay. You're getting the tough ones tonight, Joppa.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
This is important.
The current and long-standing goal with animations has been that I want to make sure that everything we need to animate has a starting point in place. That every action, every activity, everything that needs an animation associated with it, that is in place. So in other words, coverage. In other words, at this stage, we're concerned not with uber levels of polish. More concerned that every individual action that needs an animation has one. And there's several reasons for this. One of which is making sure that we have the fullest picture in view to determine, how we want to handle several secondary aspects of animation. Things like transitional animations, procedural animations, fidgets, idle breaks, animation breaks, syncing with visual effects, sound effects, things like that. Having a broader, more complete scope and arsenal of animations across the gamut in view allows us to so much better, see what is needed. And basically, we don't want any surprises. But it's also simply that at this stage of development, being still in pre-alpha, having unique animations to correspond to what you're doing in game, I weigh that more heavily than having less animations that are more polished at this stage. All of that being said, animation quality is absolutely key to creating a quality game experience, something that we enjoy playing and actually get immersed in, where combat and player interactions with the world, the entire social framework of the game, down to the emote level and things like that for role playing or just for general interacting with other players, it's key that the animations hit the mark. And we do have a ways to go on achieving that overall polish level that we're aiming for. But it's probably important to reiterate that we're committed to achieving that level of polish as development continues, but also really emphasizing where we are right now and how quantity and coverage right now still is the primary goal.
Awesome.
I think that's an important point too. I just want to kind of reiterate that to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So because this is something that anybody, especially newcomers, maybe people who have never heard of Pantheon before or aren't familiar with it, maybe they tune into a co-stream and for the first time to see Pantheon, and chances are one of the first things that they're going to comment on are the animations. There's probably the three main things that make up a game's appearance, which of course is the first thing that people notice about the game, and then therefore is usually the first thing that they judge about the game, is the appearance. And the appearance is pretty much a combination of the models and especially the textures, like the texture quality, how many details there are on that model. You've got the lighting, and then you've got animations. Those are the three big ones. It's not everything, but it's three big ones. And the texture quality in Pantheon is actually quite good. It's actually quite high. The lighting pre-HDRP, which is all of the big gameplay streams have taken place with the old lighting, and even the best model in bad lighting will still look bad. Lighting is huge, no matter what you're doing, whether you're making a game, whether you're on camera on a stream like this. It all comes to lighting is huge difference, makes a huge difference as to the mood that it sets and the colors that it brings out. And it's just, I can't say enough about how good lighting is important for making whatever the subject is just look professional. And so it's only until recently, that they, with the new HDRP changeover, that they're upgrading basically from like the same lighting that the PlayStation 2 used to actual more modern day high-tech lighting. And we've seen little bits and pieces of it here. We still haven't seen it on full display, but once that is dialed in and locked in and actually properly presented, that alone I think will turn some heads, and people will literally see Pantheon in a new light, and it will look very different. Even if all the models are the same, just changing that lighting, it's like a whole new world almost. So there's that aspect, and then of course there's animations, particularly character animations, and as Joppa was saying, the animations currently are still lacking, and will probably be lacking for the foreseeable future. But when you think about it, the first step is to make sure that there is any animation, so that when you tell your character to sit, the character sits, and it isn't just stuck there standing, even if the game knows that they're sitting and so they're meditating or whatever. It's important that you actually see that visually, a visual representation of that. So whether you sit down or you swing your sword or pull back a bow or pick something up, there has to be some representation of that available. You got to make all of those different animations, but it's probably not the best use of time if you're hand animating, which they are, as opposed to like using motion capture or something, which then you have to have a whole other, you have to have a whole rig and studio set up for that, which is just probably not in the cards right now. But when they're hand animating, do you really think it would be the best use of time for an animator to sit there and spend maybe hours like really polished? I'm going to come up with like the coolest, best, most smoothest sitting animation, you know, like, or even something more commonly used, like swinging a sword, you know. It's something that's used a lot, but you know, he can spend a lot less time just putting in a basic, like, you know, even if it doesn't really look super convincing and realistic, having some, like, okay, you can tell he's swinging a sword. It might not be the prettiest animation, but it's there. Okay, it's in the game. Players can see their character swinging a sword. Let's move on to the next thing. You know, whether it's casting a spell or whatever. Get those things in the game, and then come back and polish them and tweak them, you know, to get the fine micro movements in there later. You know, that's that stuff. Yes, outsiders judge that heavily, you know. It's just, I'm sure we've all seen it, you know, the comments on streams were like, these animations look like crap, like blah, blah, blah. Which they do. That's just because it's placeholder, you know. And so it's just good. It's good to hear him reiterate, though, that that time for polish is later, and you know, it's coming, but there's a method to the madness, and that will just be further down the line.
Anything on the? I know
we did just, by the way, finish another. Even as I'm saying that, we did just finish a few polish passes on the run animation.
Cool.
You know, we're not going to stop everything animation wise and focus on polishing all the animations right now. That's we're not going to do that. But from time to time, we will single one out and push it further along. Now, and then as far as outsourcing goes, just remember, you asked that. It really is a huge component to our development. We're exploring a couple of different amazing companies right now that we would be pretty excited to work with. One of which has already done some sample work for us with the Ratkin, and we're super pleased with. And so it's something we're exploring very proactively. It's something that we're looking, you know, to start making some firm decisions on as far as who and, you know, what the scope would be. And some of the sample work that we've seen so far, it bodes very, very well for the future. So 22, we've got a lot of ground to cover in this area when it comes to, you know, whether it's animations, whether it's, you know, additional NPC models, and, you know, the kind of character art side of things. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and so you can expect it to be a focus of ours.
But it's nice that you said that the level of polish and being perfect isn't needed for alpha.
Right.
So everybody knows that. That's awesome.
Yeah, but even what we've seen internally, things are, you know, you could, again, talking about evolution and talking about moving forward. It's exciting, very exciting. So, you know, we talked, you know, I have one last question, I guess. You know, a lot of these systems that have been completed rely heavily on the UI implementation. You know, that includes like banking or the auction system, the guild system, the looking for group tool, ability loadouts, and even climbing. The way it's worded, it seems like the systems themselves are in a great place, at least from a design perspective, but need UI work. Can you talk to these systems a little and just sort of maybe where they are at as far as the design goes?
Well, I mean, again, design-wise, they're in a good place. I mean, design complete essentially means that they're ready to be implemented, you know, according to that design. So I think the key here is really emphasizing the UI element, because that's a really important piece. Climbing is the least dependent on anything UI related that you mentioned, but on the whole, the design complete systems are waiting on implementation because they rely so heavily on UI elements to support them. And subsequently, one of the key things that we will need relatively soon is someone with solid UI and UX or user experience expertise to help us unify all of our various UI elements, and then also contribute to the kind of the implementation plan, the functionality, the aesthetic of those remaining UI elements that these systems depend on. But there's a reason that all of these are listed as part of the alpha roadmap, because each of these systems are necessary for that complete gameplay loop experience that we need and want to be able to start alpha testing. So, anything that's on that list is considered, high priority in terms of, some of those things will come first and some of them will come last, in that particular list, but they're all necessary. And, hopefully that answers that question.
I think so. So much for the shorter stream. We'll see how that goes kind of moving forward. But the goal is to do a little bit more shorter, digestible pieces. Listen, we're excited to talk about the game, so we're not going to put limitations as far as timing goes. We'll just see how these things go moving forward. This year in particular, you're going to see month to month, things exponentially getting, more and more developed, obviously, but more and more to show. And I think that's important. Guys, any final thoughts here? CP?
This is a heads down year. We've got a lot of milestones to hit, and we talked at the beginning about some of the changes we'll be making to the stream, and some of that really comes down to protecting every ounce of time that the development team has to work and to get things done, because we've got really high hopes for this year. We've got really high ambitions, and we're on a really, really good track. So I'm just, there are so many different things. I'm just, have this mental map in my mind of all the different, things that are coming down the pike, and it's going to be a very important year. So excited, very excited.
Imminence.
Tony,
2022.
I'm gonna steal the very excited. Also very excited. We get to see on a week-to-week basis the progress that's being made, and David, now we get to dig in and annoy people and say, hey, can we share this? Can we share this? Can we share this? That's gonna be really fun working together and getting some of this content put together, and getting some of the answers for the community. I think that both you and I are very dedicated to. So it's all about having fun, building that relationship. Can you please? I don't want to inherit your ability to die in game. I mean, I have stealth, so that's maybe we can learn from each other and only take the good qualities.
I just need to apparently inherit your guys' thick glasses. I feel like, although you apparently didn't pay attention to the sweatshirt.
Wait, did we just transport back to middle school? Did somebody just take a stab at me for my thick glasses?
I'm just saying, I didn't get the memo. But anyway, no.
There's there's a lot of actually interesting fashion choices going on. Right. They all have beards. 2 out of the 3 are wearing sweatshirts. 2 out of the 3 are wearing glasses. As somebody pointed out earlier in the stream, the hair decreases from left to right as you go. It's like, what does this all mean? I don't know if it means anything.
It's gonna be an amazing year, and I think we're definitely gonna have guests on the regular. We're definitely gonna continue to bring what you guys expect from these streams, which is the beans. I'm really excited to have Tony and his. I just want him to grow the beard out a little more so he looks a little more Fu Manchu.
Actually, the length of beard. I think the length of beard gets longer as you go from left to right too. So, interesting. So the hair is moving from the top to the bottom of their head. That's what it is. As the hair on the top of your head gets less, the hair on your chin gets longer. I think we've solved the mystery. It's the grayness in the beard that doesn't. There's not so much of a pattern there, though. That's where it starts to fall apart. Because Ronek's got some, salt and pepper, beard going on. Joppa's most of it's going gray. Then Minus has a nice dark. I don't think he's got any gray hairs there. Nice dark beard. We're gonna have to unpack this later.
I think this partnership is going to work out great. As a reminder, Pantheon is a crowdfunded game. Again, please head on over to pantheonmmo.com. We have plenty of pledge tiers for all sorts of budgets, and get in on the action. And hopefully we'll see you when we eventually do our next pre-alpha. Guys, thank you again. This is us signing off.
Onward and upward, everyone. This was a great year.
Take care, guys.
All right, that was 50 minutes. That was only like 10 minutes shorter than a normal stream. It was good though. It'll be interesting though to see how short they go with these moving forward, because I mean, you guys have been following me. You know that I love shorter form content. You know, most of the videos that I produce are like anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, sometimes even shorter than 10 minutes. And then I got the Baz Flash, which is 1 minute, like just easily consumed. I don't know about you guys, but I noticed I noticed this about myself when I'm like browsing YouTube. If I see that the time, the length of a video is like a minute or less, I will watch almost anything. I will watch almost any video that's a minute or less, because I don't know, just the psychology of it. It's just like, it's like, what's 16 seconds of my life? You know, like I can watch that. I'm just curious, you know, and it doesn't cost me anything. But that I don't think I'm the only one that's like that either, because, and I think that's partly why it's so to their advantage to go with these shorter form videos rather than having, you know, 150-minute video that talks about a wide range of topics. Like, break it up into shorter videos. You know, you can have one video about you know, their networking, like maybe like a 10-minute. This was an 8-minute video about networking. You know, just post that by itself, maybe with some context before and after, so people kind of understand a little bit more about what they're seeing. But like, maybe even just, you know, just post that on its own, because as people are just browsing YouTube, if they look, you know, if anybody who's not really super dedicated to following Pantheon's development, they see even a 51-minute video, they're like, like that's, you know, that's kind of a big commitment. You know, that's like an hour of my day. You know, there's only 24 hours in a day. You're only awake for 18 of them, probably, at most, on average. And, you know, you're going to spend like almost an hour of that, you know, watching a video about a game that's in development. Most people probably won't. But if it's 10 minutes, be like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe I got 10 minutes I can spare, you know what I mean? And you know, that gets them a little bit, eases them into being interested and learning, you know, learning things about the game and its development. So it'll be interesting to see where they take that. I think that's good. But again, ultimately at the end of the day, comes down to, as much as we all love hearing from Joppa, I saw you guys talking about it in chat, and I agree. Like, it's hard to beat Joppa's enthusiasm and his ability to articulate things in a way that people can understand. Like, that's invaluable. But also, you know, he's pulled in a lot of different directions. You know, he's got a lot of different jobs, and taking, you know, an hour to do a stream is an hour that he could be doing other very important work on Pantheon. So hopefully they find the right balance there and can really just, honestly, I know I'm probably in the minority and it's probably surprising to a lot of people, but like, as much as I love doing these watch parties, like, even if they took like a month or two off and maybe they just went to like quarterly update streams, I would be okay with it. I wouldn't complain. If it meant actually getting alpha here sooner, I would be supportive of that, because you know we can look at these pictures all day, but it's nothing compared to actually being able to play it. You know, that's really what it's all about. But I did like what we saw here tonight. I didn't mention it earlier, but I especially liked the material library, especially since it was since Philip Kedge was involved in it, and because he just joined the team not that long ago, like maybe a couple months ago at most. And so it's really encouraging to see, you know, him dive right in and get this stuff churned out so quickly already. And it looks really good. This all looks really good. You know, like I was saying, like one of the most important parts of the appearance of any game is, one of them is textures, and this looks the weathering in particular just looks very, very convincing. That's cool. So it's and especially that he's been able to churn all this out so quickly, I think is a good sign. Especially that one. I love the bright colors. Like, what in the world is that? Almost looks kind of like, I don't know. You know what, actually? Like, this kind of looks like Stormglass, from which we've seen on the Isle of Infinite Storm in the Sleepless raid. There's these pools of resin. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, by the way. This is not legit. This is my guess. It looks like it looks like the model that they've shown when there's these pools of resin in the Eye of Infinite Storm. When lightning strikes them, it hardens into this glass, this like red glass-like material, and it kind of looks like this. It almost kind of looks like it's got like streaks of lightning going through it. If that's not it, that's quite the coincidence. Oh my god, I just realized that you can't even see. You can't even see what I'm looking at. I'm such a noob. Now you can see. I'm just looking at it on my own screen, just like, take my word for it. I'm just describing it to you. No, this is what I'm looking at. Doesn't this look great? And skip through. This almost looks like copper. You know, like copper like turns green when it ages. Like, what in the world is that? Yeah, you know what? Because I'm curious, and I got time. So let's go to the library, just so in case you don't know what I'm talking about. Do I have it labeled as Storm Glass? I do.
Render on environmental.
So this is from April 2019. So this is a while ago, but doesn't that look pretty similar to that? This is a little more pinkish. This is a little bit more pinkish. But and it's interesting how it turns orange when it ages. But that's pretty close. And again, this is from 2019. This model could have been updated too. Interesting. But you see how fast we can pull this stuff up with the library. www.librarypantheon.com. If you haven't already, go spend some time in there, jumping through all the years of Pantheon content. You'll be surprised what you can learn. Anyway, on that note, I think I will call it there. But this was a good stream, and I think it gave me the idea. Maybe I will get working on making a video of my own explaining what we know so far about the network stack, because it is so important, and they've been talking about it for a while, pretty much since Kyle joined the team. I'll try, because I know there was a little bit of confusion early in the stream as to what the timeline is for it, and kind of some of the things they were saying. I'm gonna rewatch it and try to get some more solid answers, and I'll get working on a video kind of doing a more thorough overview of the whole thing, of what we know about it so far, because it really is, it's a big piece of the puzzle. It will, last we heard, it will probably take a couple of months, maybe 2 to 3 months roughly. It's an estimate. 2 to 3 months to implement, but then once that's done, that's one of the last big pieces of the puzzle. Once that's in place, the other things, much smaller tasks, and a lot of tasks that are really just waiting on the network stack to be implemented. So once we actually get the word that the network stack implementation is complete, that's going to be big, and that it's gonna get bonkers after that. So we have that to look forward to. Until then, I will see you guys here next month for the next developer stream. I think we'll probably continue, if you guys enjoyed this, I think we'll probably continue to do the day after. if it in the afternoon. I liked this time of day. I like streaming at this time of day, because I usually have to actually get up pretty early. So streaming when the stream starts at like 9, that can be a little rough, and I might kind of feel rushed. But I like these afternoon streams. If I could do them in the morning, I would. That would call it the morning after show. But we'll call it the afternoon after. Because this is really fun. So hope to see you guys around on Discord and YouTube, wherever it may be around the community. Don't forget, go pick yourself up an Imminence in anticipation of this exciting year. Imminence 2022 mug on my store. Regardless, though, please stay safe. Have a good day, and we will see you later.